rescue organization, was found dead in Turkey. He fell out of a balcony. I'm not joking. He was also a former member of MI6, I believe, and the Syrian White Helmets, who only seem to operate in areas controlled by the rebels.
By the way, you say these things like, oh, the whistleblower is a CIA agent, and oh, this guy's a former... We've all done our tour at MI6 or the CIA at some point or another. That's just part of life in the world.
Yeah, plenty of people have been former members of the CIA. Like
happens all
Bill
the time.
Buckley or Anderson Cooper. I mean, it's just a normal thing to do.
Yeah, you make it sound like it's a conspiracy theory. I could name you hundreds of prominent individuals in the media and in politics who are former CIA assets or agents. You say that like it's like this conspiratorial thing.
Yes. So the media is like, oh man, disgruntled. You really don't want to be a disgruntled worker in America. I mean, that's a surefire way, seemingly, to die in a way that ensures that nobody ever pays attention to what you say. You better to be like a union rabble-rouser than a disgruntled worker. That was really about it for the OPCW thing. Tulsi Gabbard, unfortunately, was not out there doing her duty as an Assad apologist by defending the line of Damascus, as she is ostensibly getting paid to do by the Kremlin. So hopefully they took away some of her budget.
But this is just another example of how, even with our sparse schedule, when you listen to this show, you get the news months before it happens.
Yeah. How
many months ago did we tell everybody that this whole Syria chemical gas thing was a hoax?
Yeah.
Like a year ago?
Yes. Yeah, anybody with a brain knows that Assad is not gassing his own people. Certainly, if he did, he hasn't done it since 2014, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the bar is pretty low, but we can safely say that Assad has met it, right? The world's deadliest optometrist. Dan, in case you didn't know, that was actually... apparently libertarians really like medical doctors who then transition to politics. Because Ron Paul was an OBGYN, and then Bashar al-Assad was an optometrist. Not to say that libertarians love Bashar al-Assad, I'm just,
Yeah, when you said deadly, I thought you meant Rand Paul.
No. Oh, my God.
I'm just kidding.
But
it gets harder and harder to tell Rand Paul and Bashar al-Assad apart these days.
Yeah. Oh.
Bashar al-Assad, that's a joke.
Rand Paul is indeed a Shia sectarian. I feel like I've talked about this before.
You have.
Yeah.
To the
massacre at Karbala, Sunnis have been killing Shia. Ronald ibn Bull al-Kantaki Husseini.
What was it that Assad said recently? He said that Trump was the best president?
Oh, yes. Bashar al-Assad has said that Trump is the best president because he's an enemy that is honest with you and doesn't deceive.
He said he's the best president ever because he's a transparent president.
Yes.
And he had this great quote. Where did he say? What does he say? Here it is. All American presidents commit crimes and end up taking the Nobel Prize and appear as a defender of human rights and the unique and brilliant American or Western principles. But all they are is a group of criminals who only represent the interests of the American lobbies of large corporations in weapons, oil, and others.
Yes. Oh, Assad he validated another thing. Let's not forget, Assad also said that Epstein didn't kill himself.
Oh, wait a minute. You're right.
Yes, he says, American billionaire Jeffrey Epstein was killed several weeks ago. They said he had committed suicide in jail. Now, just to be clear, since Bashar al-Assad is in fact president of the Syrian Arab Republic, I mean, this guy is obviously a professional at executing his political enemies, so he just knows a cover-up when he sees it. Says, however, he was killed because he knew a lot of vital secrets connected with very important people in the British and American regimes, and possibly in other countries as well. Assad told the outlet, as translated by the state-run TASS Russian news agency. And then he goes on to talk about the leader of the White Helmets. He says, and now the main founder of the White Helmets has been killed. He was an officer and had worked his whole life with NATO in Afghanistan, Kosovo, Iraq, and Lebanon. All countries, by the way, that are just paradises now. I mean, let's just thank NATO for stabilizing those places. Both of us know that they, that is the representatives of the White Helmets, are naturally part of Al-Qaeda. I believe that these people, as well as the previously liquidated Osama bin Laden and Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, had been killed chiefly because they knew major secrets. They turned into a burden once they had played out their roles. A dire need to do away with them surfaced after they had fulfilled their roles. I think we should also note that there's no moral condemnation in Assad's words here.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he's just talking about, like, oh, he was killed because he just knew things, and he was a loose end, and so he had to be killed. And it's naturally... right?
Yeah.
Like he uses the word naturally, right? It's like that's just what you do. And I really like Bashar al-Assad's sort of like amoralistic perception of the United States and NATO. Well, it's like, oh, that's just what countries do, and we're just glad that we're just all on the same page on how it works.
Yeah.
It was getting annoying when Barack Obama was complaining about, me killing children, but he was a drone bomb warlord of Yemen. I mean, that was just a little weird. But Donald Trump says he's here to steal my oil. Yeah, what am I going to do about it?
Yeah, he has like a kind of cold. It's like reading it's like Machiavellian, like reading The Prince or something. Like that's just the way the world works. It's fine. It's fine. He's not outraged. There's no phony outrage from Assad. Assad's like, I get it. They killed Epstein. That's the way the world works. I kill who I have to kill. They kill who they have to kill.
Yeah, I feel like Assad can totally change the U.S.-Syria relationship by simply saying something on the order of, it's a shame that Donald Trump wants me dead. I feel as though if he could only stand up for his interests, we could be the best of friends. Like, he could just kind of lay out a tweet that's just the perfectly crafted bait. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Just go for the Kim Jong-un route and just say, I feel as though it's a shame that Donald Trump is afraid to make a deal with me because I feel as though we could be friends.
Yeah.
Right? That just gets it. Like, that's both. Yeah. You challenge his ego, say, but we could have been friends. It could have been different. But, he wants me dead for reasons that I don't understand.
It could work. I could picture that.
Speaking of Greta Thunberg, we're talking about Greta Thunberg, who is not any of those things. Rather, Greta Thunberg, who was famous for about a month, right? It was very surreal for me because I had pulled up Facebook one day and suddenly everybody's talking about this young Scandinavian girl. And I'm like, oh crap, did she go backpacking through Pakistan and get murdered, or what happened? I was like, oh, she went to the UN and yelled at them for a bit. She was
raising awareness about fetal alcohol syndrome, right?
Autism and global warming and stuff. Yeah, she was raising awareness about global warming.
Do you think she looks like Ben Shapiro?
A little bit. She looks a bit like Veteran.
Does a little.
Okay, hold on. We're not here to roast the appearance of a 14-year-old. 16.
That's what I'm here for.
Okay, well,
this little girl wants to take my air conditioning away. I will roast her appearance.
Okay, let's focus though on the content of her character. She yelled at the UN for a little bit, and it's like, you've stolen my childhood and this and that, and everybody was talking about her, and it's like, why do we care? Like, I understood why CNN was saying she was important, but I mean, libertarian organizations, including ones that I actually respect, were just talking about Greta non-stop. Like, why? But this only lasted a month. What is
this new phenomenon where we have children that we parade in front of us to just like morally lecture the world? They'll go into a room full of adults and just shame them, and the adults just like bask in the shame. She went to the UN and said, "You have stolen my childhood," or whatever, and they all cheered. She basically said, "You guys ruined my life, and I'm an innocent little girl, and you should be ashamed of yourselves." I think she used the word shame.
How dare you?
Yeah, I can't do that ridiculous accent, but they all stood up and cheered like, "Yes, you are right, little girl. We have stolen your life."
That's why you go on sailing trips across the Atlantic. And I don't know. But the point is, Greta Thunberg is not important. But people were acting as if she was, and she was expected to win the Nobel Peace Prize. But imagine being so unqualified for the Nobel Peace Prize that they actually, they give it to somebody who actually advanced the cause of peace. Let's not forget, the Nobel Committee gave a prize to Barack Obama. They gave a prize together to Yitzhak Rabin and Yasser Arafat. Could you imagine giving a Nobel Peace? I mean, it's in a move that was guaranteed to offend everybody. The Nobel Peace Prize gave, at the same time, a Nobel Peace Prize to the Prime Minister of Israel and the leader of the PLO. I'm so glad I don't even need to qualify. I mean, I never need to qualify my statements on Israel, of course, because I don't have the correct opinions on it. But I mean, in a move ensuring that nobody's happy, right? But in the end, the actual winner of the Nobel Peace Prize this year was the president of Ethiopia, who ended what was, I think, a decades-long war with the country of Eritrea. Eritrea is kind of a North Korea on East Africa, and that's true because you've never heard of Eritrea because nobody cares about it. Yeah. Every once in a while, Eritrean refugees spill over into other countries, including actually Israel. But the president of Ethiopia said, I think this war can stop because it's not really doing anything for us. Yeah. And he won the Peace Prize, and I can only imagine how relieved he felt Like, imagine you're this African leader, right? And you're actually doing serious peace work. You become president of some country. It's like, okay, I'm going to do the thing to bring peace to this war-torn part of Africa. You like my accent, right? To this war-torn part of Africa, and I've done it. I've ended the war. I might even get a peace prize. And then you just turn on the news and you see that, like, some white girl is talking about global warming at the UN. You're like, God damn it. This is not my year, seems. It's like a CNN has just forgotten you exist. And then you put your suit away, you crumple up the speech you wrote, and you just toss it or whatever. And then a knock at the, you're sitting around in like a wife beater and shorts on the couch, looking at the TV, drinking a beer, just wallowing in your self-pity. And then you get a knock on the door, and it's like, hello? It's us. It's from the Nobel Peace Prize Committee. Like, you're at the wrong place. Greta Thunberg is, 1,000 miles away from you. And it's like, no, Mr. Ahmed, we're here to give you the Nobel Peace Prize. It's like, what? I thought you were going to give it to the girl who complained about global warming. No, it's for you, really. And then, he hastily scampers, puts on a suit. His tie's not even properly on. He, like, fumblingly opens his speech. The rousing music plays as he talks about, like, some story from his childhood about how he had an Eritrean friend who he gave a teddy bear to, and, how he went to America and he learned the ways of peace from a young lifeguard while he was going by the name of Cornpop. And then he gets his peace prize. Like, you like me. You really like me. So, yeah. And so Thunberg was just immediately out of the news after. I mean, that came and went, but it was very strange.
It's very interesting because it shows, again, how they control what people think, because one day you've never heard of this girl. She's just a 13-year-old girl in Sweden or something. The next day, she's the most important person in the world, and she's giving speeches at the UN. You ever given a speech at the UN? I haven't given one yet. I don't know how that works.
I have actually been to the UN building. I was in Mali UN in high school, shocking absolutely nobody. I got to stand at the podium. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool.
I was like, I've never given a speech to the UN. Have you? I was like, technically. I've spoken words at the UN before.
You never heard of Robert Wenzel?
No, I never heard of Robert Wenzel.
Never mind. He's a guy, he's a con man that the Mises Institute fell for.
Oh, and, no.
He wrote like a book or something, and he wrote a little pamphlet, which is a speech he delivered at the Federal Reserve. And it turns out what really happened was he had lunch with his friend in that building, and he says he gave a speech, but really he just said this to his friend in an empty room. That's like your speech to the UN. But anyway, the next day she's the most important person in the world, and then 2 days later it's like next topic. She's just done.
Yeah, there was a pretty funny mural I saw in Canada where she was out in like backwoods Canada railing against energy companies, and there's a mural of her, and somebody vandalized it, and it said, "This is oil country." I thought that was pretty funny. Next, we can move on to clown world stuff. We can do this rapid fire. So there's been a coup in Bolivia. People are saying it's not a coup. Much like, for those of you who remember when there was a coup against Robert Mugabe in Zimbabwe, and God, that's an amazing set of words. People were saying it's not a coup, and it ended up having you have two guys in military uniforms on the state-run TV instead of the normal reporter talking about how there was no coup. Same in Bolivia. So what had happened was Evo Morales ran for 2 terms, and then the Constitution has a term limit, but he said that term limits are for suckers. I'm going to run again. Tried to have a referendum to amend the Constitution. The referendum failed. So he just told the court that it was a violation of his civil rights if he couldn't run. And the court said that makes sense, and they let him run again. I can't remember if he won the election. He probably did. The military... Oh, but then there was... Yeah, he won the election, but then there were accusations of voting irregularities. And so he was ordered to... Well, the military requested that he resign. When a president resigns at the request of the military, that's not a coup. And all of the mainstream media outlets in the United States are like, he resigned amid protests and at the request of the military. I'm like, that's a coup. Stop it. And a lot of people that I know in real life, among my many features, they also find this strange about me, that I'm always coming to the defense of this or that, like Latin American indigenous Marxist.
Do you need me to remind you of the Lou Rockwell rule?
What's the Lou Rockwell rule?
The Lou Rockwell rule is to never demonize or participate in the demonization of a leader or regime that the CIA wants to overthrow.
Oh, yes. Okay, yes. But in particular, I'm just more concerned about the fact that everybody's lying about it. Like, everybody's like, everybody always has these like